beautiful souls. I am so excited to dig in today. This has been a conversation that my heart and soul has been so excited to dig into for all of us to learn in this credible space. So, Leola Watkins is in the space, and she is a pleasure priestess and the best-selling author of Sacred Sex Ed, which you guys, I literally have the book like right here in my hands. This is the sex education I wish I received when I was in school. Like, it is so good. You guys have to pick up a copy of this because it covers what my heart and soul actually desired to learn about sex. So she guides individuals and couples into discovering how life force energy moves through the body and how to actually harness that inner power for a pleasure-filled life and business. So she discovered Tantra and shamanic sexuality as modalities to heal her relationship with her body, process sexual trauma, and create a life that she loves. She is dedicated to guiding others into being turned on by life itself to find God in their bodies and to seduce the world into the greater good for all. So, Leola, I am so excited that you're here. I can't wait to dig in with you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I also want to express my gratitude to the listeners because I understand that for many, this is a really edgy topic. It was edgy for me to write a book with the word sex on the cover. So just know that out of anything that I say today, take what works for you, leave the rest, trust yourself first. That's really my mantra. But thank you for being here and leaning in.
Yes, I absolutely love that. And that is my philosophy in life itself. It's like, take what feels good in your body and just release the rest. It's either not your truth or not your truth right now,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter. Yeah. So, for someone who might be new to Tantra, they might be thinking, oh, it's just about sex. And I know it's so much bigger than that. Could you share with people more about like what is Tantra and how is it more of like a way of being? And yeah, let's just start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tantra can be quite confusing and esoteric for many, partially because there are just so many different perspectives and lineages and different modalities. So you obviously have classical Tantra that comes from East Asia. And even within classical Tantra, there's like over 50 different lineages, right? And those all have different practices and beliefs. But then you also have Neo Tantra, which is what most of the Western world thinks of when you say Tantra, which tends to be a little bit more about intimacy practices and sexuality. Then you also have Taoist practices, and you have Egyptian Tantra. And then there's even evidence of tantric influence in Christianity and in the Gnostic realms of Christianity, and really wrapped up in Mary Magdalene and Jesus's story. And then you also have shamanic sexuality, which is quite similar to Tantra in many ways, but is kind of a completely different modality as well. So within all that, you can see how, no one practitioner has the exact same philosophy and modalities as another. So when I talk about Tantra, I like to go back to the word itself. So Tantra is a Sanskrit word, and Sanskrit is an ancient language from East Asia in which many of the, tantric texts as well as Hindu texts and other religious texts were written in. And Tantra, the word, is actually two Sanskrit concepts put together. So tan means to expand and tra means to liberate. So when you think about it from that, etymological standpoint, Tantra is about finding your unique path to expansion and liberation. Expansion and liberation. That's really what Tantra is about. And what I love about that definition is that it is so subjective. What is expansive and liberating to me is very different than what's expansive and liberating to you. And so my job is really to help people find what is that path for you? And even recognizing that it changes over time. Like there's no attachment to what expansion and liberation looks like for you in different parts of your life as well. Therefore, it is this practice of continual calibration and really being in your body and using your body as a mystery school to get curious about what is really aligning for me and inviting me to step into my highest self in this season of life. And that can look many, many different ways. And so you can also see how that definition of expansion and liberation, for many of us, we find that expansion and liberation by stepping into our passion and our purpose. And for so many of us, we feel that in our businesses and in an entrepreneurial journey, which I know is a big part of your path and your audience. So I wanted to kind of tie that in as well.
I love it. Yeah, let's dig into that. So, for someone who's wanting to find that expansion and liberation within their business, I mean, that's something that so much of what I stand for is like build your business in alignment with your soul, or else you've built something else that you don't have the vitality to really scale, or maybe you do and you push yourself and then you burn out and then you learn the lesson. But I always say, like, build it in alignment with your soul because you came here to uniquely build something different. It's unique, beautiful to you. And I'm curious, how does Tantra land in this experience of business?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I like to think of my business and my clients' businesses as their soulmates. Like my business is one of my soulmates. And what does it mean to be in right relationship with your soulmate? And one of the things that's been the most transformational for me and for those that I've taught around business and pleasure, like creating a pleasure-led business, is finding what is right relationship to my business. And one of the first pieces I like to touch on is attachment styles. So understanding that, we can find correct, secure attachment with our business as well as in our relationship. So, noticing like you're never gonna feel really in pleasure in your business if you're constantly in anxiety about your business or in avoidance about your business. For those that, aren't familiar with the attachment types, they're usually used to describe romantic relationships and sometimes familial or platonic relationships. But I don't hear so many people talking about the attachment styles in their business. And so that has been to me like a foundational piece in bringing, my tantric understanding of intimacy into my business is treating my business like a soulmate and therefore using my business as an opportunity to grow. Like this is to me, any relationship, including my relationship to my business, is there for me to evolve as a person and grow. And so my business has been one of the greatest vehicles for me in this life for my own self-development and expansion and liberation. And also my business and the purpose, the unique frequency that it has been meant to bring into this world has also expanded as well. So it's like that philosophy of 1 + 1 = 3, right? Like that's the marriage that I have as well. I want a relationship where two amazing people come together and create something that they couldn't create alone. And that's how I feel in my business and how I invite, others to approach their business as well.
This is blowing my mind. Like, I've never heard anyone talk about business in this way, and I love it. So, let's say someone is looking at their business and they're like, okay, I know about myself. I'm like that disorganized attachment style, which is kind of a combination of the two. What would someone do with that information? Would they just kind of notice where it's coming up and then they alchemize it in real time? Or, like, are there steps you walk someone through once they know their attachment style to business?
Yeah, so there are different telltale signs that would maybe show what type of attachment style you have to your business. So anxious attachment might, overwork or obsess about every detail, or maybe like try to people please, over delivering beyond their means, beyond their nervous system capacity, right? Like, just like constantly worried about failure or not selling, very sensitive to criticism, feedback. And then, for an avoidant attachment with the business, might struggle to collaborate with people, might struggle to set deadlines, might avoid certain parts of the business that are necessary to grow, but feel crunchy. Like a lot of people I see like don't like to look at their finances and they're making great money in their business, but they're like, where is it all going? Right. Maybe just like ghosting when things get hard, dropping clients, like ghosting when like you launch and there's just crickets. Like these are all examples of, avoidant, and then obviously disorganized would be like a little mix of both.
Yeah.
So yeah, so what do we do in these circumstances? The journey is to become a secure CEO. And to me, like the secure CEO is one who, has a balanced and confident approach to their career. They're not wrapping up their identity and their worth in how the business does, right? It's just like in a relationship, if you're constantly looking for external validation from your partner, that they're never going to leave and that you're beautiful and that they like, obviously you want to hear those things. And if that's the only place that you're getting validation for your worth, it's going to be a really complex relationship, right? And so we want to get into a place of being interdependent with our business as well, and having this secure attachment, right? Having a strong vision, having a great team that you feel like you can rely on, having a healthy work-life balance, things like that. So this is tough though, because, for many of us, like our businesses are in some ways integral to our survival and also our self-worth. And so it's like this balancing act, right? Like our businesses aren't often just passion projects. They're also how we pay the bills and also how we, potentially prove to ourselves and potentially to the world or our families that we're doing okay and that we're crushing it and that like we are here on purpose and so it's just important to be really mindful of you know, how you are operating in your business and where these patterns are showing up for you. And I can go into a little bit more about like some things I would recommend, but I know I just like laid out a lot of information, so I'm gonna let that settle.
I love it. Oh, it's so good. Like I'm like just on the tip of my toes, fascinated by this. It's so cool the way that you've channeled this. I mean, I just think it's so like revolutionary to look at your business that way because it's almost like you're putting words to what I've been doing in my business and what I've been kind of teaching. It's so cool how you've looked at it in this way. And I'm curious, I think you were about to get into this, but like ways of, alchemizing, are there modalities that you've used where you're like, "Ooh, okay, I'm noticing I'm avoiding my finances." Are there certain things you use where you start to kind of alchemize where your business is holding up a really big mirror to say, "Hey, this is where you get to heal next."
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing for me has been nervous system
Yes.
work. And I do tend to run on the more anxious spectrum, both in my personal life and in my business, meaning I would tend to have a more anxious attachment to my business as well. And so, really being regulated in the nervous system has been a huge piece to notice when I'm getting into that hyperactive, anxious space. But it's also been like, and I'm gonna just be really honest and real, like there are still days where the anxious attachment crops up. I had one of those days this week. I came off of a really amazing retreat and it's this epic high, and then you go back down and you're integrating, and then it's like also, I was
Yeah.
really in a portal of with one part of my business and feeling like other parts weren't getting their love and devotion and feeling this pressure to jump back in, but knowing like I have to resource myself on the other side, and really playing with that balance of I know that the rest and the pleasure and taking the spaciousness to integrate is very important. And also I can feel my anxious tendencies starting to jive up because of the just where I'm at with the past weekend. So for me, a big piece has been when I feel that coming up, noticing it, honoring it, talking to that part of myself and letting that part of myself know that I'm on it. I know what needs to happen. And also reminding that part, hey, let's relax and soften so that when we do go back and recommune with the business in an intentional way, I'm coming at it from a super grounded, empowered place. And being clear to like have that distinction between the business identity and the personal identity, understanding as well that like this message that wants to come through is not about me as much as it's about a frequency from God that wants, or spirit or divine or whatever you believe in. It's about that message, and I'm just a vehicle for it. And I'm not a good vehicle for it when I am not in right relationship with the 3D mechanisms of the business. I also think just like being really grounded in my why has been supportive. So, like doing things just because it's what your clients want instead of, or like it's easy money, instead of really connecting to like the why and the intention. When you are too focused on like what your clients want or just making the easy money, it's like the equivalent of people pleasing with your business, and it's not hot, and it will make you resent and fall out of love with your business. Building a good support network, like having mentors, advisors, people like you, as well as like other peers that are in a similar place has been very supportive as well. Yeah, those are just some things. I could go on, but yeah.
Yes. I love this. I think sometimes just having examples can be really supportive for people because they're like, that's a great concept. Where do I start? So
Yeah.
I love all of the examples that you gave around, calming your nervous system, doing some of those parts work, noticing the part of you that just needs to be seen and heard and loved. I find breath work to be really, really powerful. Even if it's just 3 deep breaths, I'm like, oh, I'm back in my body now. How interesting. So just little things like that I find to be really, really powerful when I just need to drop back in because ultimately the things that are expanding us are taking us out of our comfort zone. So we have to start to normalize that success in our body. That's one of the big things that I talk about is like you're stepping out of something that feels safe and normal. So every step I do, I'm like, all right, let me tune in. Do I need to bring some safety into my body? Because we're constantly, I feel like, reinventing like new versions of ourselves. We're always evolving. We're kind of stepping into new versions of ourselves in business. Maybe we decide, ooh, I want to do this new thing. And then we see the big vision and then we're like, oh, if I build it, will they come? Like little things like that. And it's like when we can calm our nervous system and that deep remembering, like you said, like it's not about me. It's about what does God source universe want to move through me? That always grounds me in my body so fast. Cause I'm like, if I'm being anxious, I'm making it about me. Right. But if I'm just dropped in and ready to serve, I know that it's about the people that I'm there to serve and that it's really God's message moving through me, which is powerful. So, oh, I just love, yeah, everything that you mentioned. And you know what I would love for you to dig into too is this journey of becoming this pleasure priestess. So I know it's kind of like what I'd love to dig into is almost this journey of you saying yes to yourself. Because I know from just even reading part of this book where you were like, okay, it came to me and I was like, who am I to actually say that? Can I do that? And I think that's a big part of business is kind of like we get the intuitive ping and then we have all the limiting beliefs. Can you kind of walk us through that journey of like fully kind of embodying that version of you and honestly, maybe even sharing with people what is a pleasure priestess as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So how did I get into this? How did I step on this journey? I mean, it's such a big story, but I want to keep it in essence specifically related to the limiting beliefs and stepping through that portal, right?
Yeah.
Of before and after really owning this path. So first, the pleasure priestess. So to me, a pleasure priestess is she or pleasure priest, she or he who recognizes that there is a spiritual world, there is a
Mhm.
physical world, and there's an energy that connects those two worlds, right? And that energy that connects those two worlds is life force. And
Yes.
the way that we all come through into this world is through sex, is through procreation, is through life force energy running. Like every single person listening to this podcast is here because of sex. Every animal on the planet, every plant is here because of some sort of procreative interaction. So that means all of the food that we eat is here because of sex, and the clothes that we wear, as long as it's made from natural fibers, is here because of sex. And like honestly, if we were to look around our environment, everything that you see is either created directly by a procreative life force sexual interaction, or it was created by someone or something that was
Mhm.
created by this energy. So the pleasure priestess sees that like this is the fabric of our reality,
Mhm.
sexuality and pleasure as well, and really seeing that sexuality and pleasure are kind of different things that are intertwined, and so there are different ways of looking at who is the pleasure priestess, but I would say overall it's she who sees that direct connection between the
Mhm.
spirit world and the physical world and the energy that connects them, and is in deep honoring and remembering, and is dedicated to being the living embodiment of that, and empowering others to see and to reclaim their relationship to this energy as well as to their pleasure. Because to me, pleasure is medicine.
Mhm.
There's scientific studies that show that orgasm, which for many people is a peak pleasure experience in this lifetime, orgasm, boosts your immune system and it supports your mental health, regulates your nervous system. So really seeing the power of pleasure as a vehicle, a conduit to heal, and also empowering individuals to expand their capacity to receive pleasure, to like really receive it and feel it and not bypass it to find the next high, if that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. And I love this. And I love the way you're describing it because it's so true. It's like there is this spiritual realm and then there's this physical realm. And then we are kind of that single point of consciousness in between as the life force energy is moving through us and then through all things. And I think, I've heard so many people say, and I feel this, that God is in everything. It's God is within all everything. It's in everything. And so I love the way that you described that. I mean, I can just see it so clearly, and to find the pleasure in everything is so beautiful. And I think I remember seeing online like there was like rain on your wedding day and like you just like laughing and loving it. And I was like, God, I love her. Like to find the beauty in that and to just to appreciate that. Like what a gift. Like what a beautiful way to live life. So I just really want to honor the way that you not only say it, but you embody it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't freaking out.
That's fair. We'll have
Not
their
the
human moment
rain.
too.
And amazingly, like it was so, my wedding day was so different than what I envisioned and expected. And it was perfect. Like the
Yes.
ironic thing is that like I was really like it doesn't rain in Austin. Like it rains like
Yeah.
5 days a year and
Uh-huh.
not much in that time of year, especially. So it
Yes.
was really challenging to come to terms with the likely
Mm,
reality. But the funny
yeah.
thing is that it really only rained for like 30 minutes the entire day. And so
Yeah.
we were thinking we're gonna have to like maybe move things around. We had a tent, but that was where we were going to do dinner because we were thinking that that's when it would be the most likely to rain. Not
Yes.
what happened. It literally started raining as soon as I took my first steps down the
No.
like, and then it's like everybody's seated. They've all
Yeah.
seen me, and my
Yeah.
husband had this moment of like, do we stop? Like we had like we're at the
Yeah.
altar. Like, do we
Yeah.
try to move everyone? We were all
Yeah.
but one of my favorite moments of that day was after the wedding when it
Mhm.
was like seven of my closest female friends and family members in because we did it on my property, in
Yeah.
my tiny bathroom,
Yeah.
rifling through my closet. I have people drying my hair, helping
Yeah.
me get out of my dress. And it was
Uh-huh.
just such a unique, special moment that wouldn't have happened without the rain. And I had many feelings and I had grief for
Yeah.
weeks about the rain as well. So it's a both and it's seeing like, can I find the bit of aliveness even in the grief, even in the sadness? I mean, we were talking a little bit about death on some voice notes, right? And
Yes.
like
Yeah.
the aliveness that the grief reminds you of how much you've loved, and like there's pleasure in that if you let yourself go there.
Mhm. I really like that perspective because that's so true. It's so true. It puts so many things in perspective and it allows I mean, when you alchemize it, because there's so true. We're humans and we're humans and souls. So it's important for us to honor the humanness, to alchemize the feelings in real time, to then find the beauty, the wisdom, the grace, all of it through that process too. So I absolutely love that. And I totally resonate, and I'm so grateful for you sharing the humanness too, because I think so often we're looking at people and listening to people like, oh, they've got it all figured out. And it's like, oh no, just this week, it's very similar. I had a similar internal dialogue where I was like, I get to shift that. I get to be kind to myself. Like, I'm proud of you for showing up in that way. And, even if it wasn't the way that you wanted it to go, I just had this internal dialogue with myself, like, but it was perfect and it was exactly the way it was meant to be, and also what is perfect? There is no perfect. That's so
Yeah.
subjective, you know?
1,000,000%. I totally agree.
Yeah. So I would love to know, I know we were talking about even, using sex magic to align your soul with your business. What is that? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, let's talk about that. And we could go on quite a little tangent with this one. So, the way that I like to describe sex magic in one sentence is imagine what could happen if you got clear on your deepest desires
Mhm.
and masturbated or had sex about it.
Yes.
And the idea is that sex magic is based on the law of attraction, which I think is most people in probably these worlds are more familiar with the law of attraction, but I'll just give a brief overview. The law of attraction basically states, and it has nothing to do with Tantra necessarily directly, but the law of attraction basically states that the more that you revel in the goodness of life,
Mhm.
pleasure, gratitude, joy, ecstasy, the more you allow yourself to fully receive and feel those feelings, the more you will attract experiences, opportunities, and people at a similar frequency that will bring more of that goodness into your life.
Yes.
And the inverse is also true. The more that you revel in the pain, the entitlement, the frustration, anxiety, the more low vibration feelings, the more you will attract experiences, opportunities, and people at those frequencies. And it's not to
Mhm.
say that you shouldn't feel those things, or as soon as you feel those things, you've got to like, oh, let me find something joyful to do to
Right. Yeah.
pass this. No, like use I mean, every emotion, every feeling is a frequency. It's teaching you something. You definitely want to not bypass that. You want to alchemize it, as you had said. Find the silver lining, find the teaching point, feel it fully first. But what does all this have to do with your sex life?
Yeah.
Well, when do you feel the most in pleasure? When do you feel the most connected to something outside of yourself? When do you feel the most good in your body? For many of us, it's kind of in those moments, like just before orgasm or right as you're orgasming.
Mhm.
So, what would happen if you paired that really fully embodied state, high vibrational state, with the things that you really want to experience in this
Mhm.
life, whether it be selling out your next launch or calling in a spirit baby or just
Mhm.
wanting to create more peace in your life or manifesting your dream friend circle, tribe, sisterhood. Like
Mhm.
anything goes, world peace, you name it, it's all available for you to tap into. So that's kind of like one level of sex magic. And I'm happy to go in to speak a little bit more about some different ways that I have used this specifically with money and with business as well. But I'll pause there.
I would love for you to go into how you've used it with money and business. I think this is absolutely, there are people on the edge of their seat like, yes, please. So, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously you can go for the sex magic route that's like this is what I want, pair the sensation with the thing that I desire. Another route that I've taken a couple of different routes. One is I actually like I'll just give an example.
Uh-huh.
So about 8 or 9 months ago, after I launched my book,
Mhm.
I went through this feeling of like, wow, it's been years in the process of writing this book, Sacred Sex Ed, and I
Mhm.
was in LA and I was doing kind of like an LA book tour, getting on some podcasts to talk about the book, and I did an LA like launch party. And it was amazing and powerful and beautiful. But I was also like, am I done now? Like, I did the book. Like, what's next? Like, that was the thing that for years I was manifesting, envisioning. And I just felt this sense of, I could be done actually with my bit. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Or there could be another layer, but I actually don't even know what it is. Like, this was such a monumental accomplishment for me. What could be the next thing? So I did a sex magic practice where
Mhm.
instead of going in and saying, this is what I want, I said, universe, tell me what I want. Tell me
Mhm.
what wants to come through me in my business. So, and I think I even started like by like thinking about like, oh, like my next launch that I've done a couple of times and like a number and like, but it just wasn't getting me off. Like it literally like
Mhm.
wasn't that exciting in my body. It wasn't turning me on. And the universe started to place some other visions or
Mhm.
opportunities into my mind, including like, what would it look like to speak on bigger stages? What
Mhm.
would it look like to be on a TV show talking about Tantra? Things I
Mhm.
never really thought about before started to
Yeah.
come into my consciousness as like the next
Mhm.
level, the next potential level of impact, of influence, of edginess for me. And
Mhm.
so that's one way to use this. If you're feeling stuck in your business, instead of saying, this is what I want, like get curious about what's actually turning you on by getting into a turned on state and
Yes.
seeing what alights inside of you. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. I love this. Where you can play with like if you know what it is that you desire to lean into that as you're orgasming or as you're kind of building up to that, of course, like that life force energy to build and play with that energy and to add it into the thing we want to manifest. But then I also love like if you're like, okay, take me to the next level, maybe where I haven't even let myself go yet. Like let me just be in this state of like, I am fully open to receiving. Like, what a beautiful way to like fully receive in all areas of your life. Like, as you're physically receiving, but also like metaphorically and spiritually, like receiving in all ways. I just find that to be what a beautiful, powerful practice. And I think that, to be able to couple that together is just so powerful. And I think that's an incredible tool to use for clarity, but to also manifest in the things that we maybe already have clarity on. So I love the way that you shared that. Is amazing.
I can give one more example that more has to do with money if you would like as
Yeah,
well.
please.
And I
Yes.
actually think I write about this in my book, so you might have read it. But another one is asking the universe to like, the idea is, right, that like all of the things that we desire are just right there. And oftentimes it's our blocks that are keeping us from receiving those
Yeah.
said desires. And so another way is to go in and ask the universe to show you your blocks. For
Mhm.
example, maybe like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, earlier on in this business that I'm currently in, I was in it for like a year or so. And I ended up like I was living in a studio apartment in LA, and I came to this realization, okay, I need to get a bigger apartment so that I can host events, or like a bungalow, I need to get a bigger space so I can host events and expand my business. And so I got a new place. I doubled it, kind of doubled my monthly expenses. And so it was edgy. It was like
Mhm.
it was a attainable edge, right? But
Yes.
I had gone from, before starting my business, I was kind of in that like month to month, like figuring it out. And then my business empowered me to move beyond that, right? But now that I stepped into this new, you know, place to live where I was spending more, I was back at that, okay. And now I'm at my edge again of kind of living month to month. And so I remember the very first ritual that I did in this new place, I got into the bathtub, was doing my sex magic, and instead of asking for what I wanted, which was, even more financial security, I asked the universe, please show me what my blocks are. What is blocking me from the next level of abundance? And very interesting, that whole year became a huge activation for me in terms of money. I like tripled my income. It was amazing. But I did the ritual. And then 2 days later, I went on a first date with this guy. And
Mhm.
on the date, this man triggered me so hard with the
Mhm.
way he was showing up. So he was a man that came from money.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't necessarily know that, but we're at the restaurant and he's ordering everything. He doesn't drink and he's ordering me a full bottle of champagne, truffle shavings on
Yeah.
everything. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, wow, like I hope that like is he gonna like expect me to split this, like
Yeah.
as a girl date, you don't really know what's gonna happen at the end. So, anyways, we finished the meal. And he says to me, I like to play this game with my friends where we guess the total and whoever is closest chooses who pays. I'm going to pay. He says, I'm going to pay, but I'd like to play this game with you where we guess the total. And
Okay.
I'm like, this is so cringe. Um, like this is so cringe. Like if you
Yeah.
want to like show off how much I'm like,
Yeah.
all of these stories are going, and then in an instant I go, oh no, 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 no. This is the universe showing me my blocks. This man is trying to have fun and like play a game. It's really not that big of a deal. I'm
Uh-huh.
making a big deal about it because of my stories with money and how worthy I am of having this luxurious meal. And so it was just like, oh my God, wow, there it is. There the universe is giving me the opportunity to work through this block in real time. And I ended up winning, of course, because the entire dinner I was like tallying it up.
Nice.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and he paid. And we ended up dating for like a year, and he really, in many ways, activated my abundance and my relationship with money. And in other ways, like it ended up, by the end of the relationship, funny enough, I ended up paying for everything,
Mhm.
which is a whole other
Yeah.
long story. But
Yeah.
yeah, just another example of how you can use sex magic to discover blocks as well. If you've been trying to manifest something for a while, especially, and you're feeling like I'm missing something, and then, you are intentionally calling forth initiations, though, when you do that. So be prepared.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. 100%. That's so this is such a beautiful story. And I so resonate as you were speaking, where it's just like, okay, things are triggering me. And also just kind of, I love that you had the awareness though, that I don't know if you had it in the moment or if you had it later around like oh, now I know why I'm being triggered because there's something, the triggers are the guides. It's pointing
Yeah.
me what I most need to heal next. So I love
Yeah.
that you manifested that relationship in to give you exactly what you needed. And then it completed its cycle and you were done, So
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I noticed it like in the moment at the dinner, and I mean, it was perfect 'cause I just done the ritual, and it was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm
Yes.
giving so much more power to this thing than I need to, and
Yes.
not in a empowering way, in a disempowering way. So yeah.
Yes. Amazing. I'm curious too, you talked about how you've used Tantra and, the shamanic practices to alchemize things like falling back in love with your body and kind of healing some of your sexual trauma. Is there something that, or is there kind of like a process that you walk people through that kind of helps them alchemize that? Because I guarantee people that are tuning in are like, yeah, I would love to heal that and kind of feel into my body. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the book is a pretty good mirror for the journey that I would generally take people on. That being said, a book is amazing, and having one-to-one support or a community support or group support is a whole other level. But a big part of it first is shadow work. So the first part of the book
Yes.
is called Illuminate Your Shadows, and it's
Mhm.
all about recognizing the places where you have become disempowered in your relationship to your sexuality. So looking at, you know, the sex education that you had that was probably fear-based, the early sexual experiences that might have been traumatic, the projections from your parents, from your peers, from religion, etc., and really breaking down what of that am I still holding? What beliefs am I still holding? And are they serving me or are they not? Are they liberating and expansive for me or are they not? So that's the first piece. It's just like, let's clear the slate. Let's
Yeah.
really
Yes.
begin to understand the internal dialogue that is happening for me around this energy and how I interact with it.
Mhm.
The second part is really expanding your awareness of what is possible beyond the narrative that you might have gotten. And so the second part of the book is called Expand Your Awareness. And the beautiful thing is that in this part of the book, and generally speaking in my work, there's a bunch of different ways that you can interact with your sexuality, with this energy. And I believe that everyone's expression of sexual liberation and definition of sexual liberation is personal and different. And for
Mhm.
some, that might look like, oh my God, I actually think I'm poly and
Mhm.
I want to go live in a nudist society.
Yeah.
That's one
Let's
expression.
go.
Or you
Right.
could find, oh my God, I've been like in this expression of really abundantly exploring sexuality, kind of being a little slut from an unconscious space. And what's sexually liberating for me in this chapter is actually being intentionally celibate and exploring this energy within myself and healing my past sexual trauma by putting my own hands on my body, right? So
Yes.
the middle part of the book is like, here's all of the things that this could look like, and you might want a
Yes.
guide to go deeper in determining what is the right path for you. And then the third piece beyond that is, so we've illuminated the shadows, worked through that, we've expanded the awareness, expanded the menu of what's available. And then
Yes.
in the third piece is really stepping into empowerment in your sexuality. So
Mm.
seeing your expression of liberation and expansion as a source of power for yourself and evidence and support for others as well. And you also begin to explore finding pleasure in the places that you would never think to look, right? So even going into places like kink or BDSM and exploring the concept of sacred surrender and the power of exploring different dynamics and primal play, sex magic, all kinds of things. So there's a lot available in that third expansion
Mm.
level as well.
I love it. I love this so much. You guys, you have to get the book. It's called Sacred Sex Ed. It is incredible. And I love how you've kind of laid that out. And I love the way that the book is laid out because it's true. It's such a process. It's a journey. And so we're creating spaciousness as we're healing to then bring in what feels fun to play with. Right. But we need some spaciousness to feel like we can safely play in these different areas of empowerment. So I absolutely love this and I absolutely love you. And I know that everyone who's tuning in is like, I need more of you. So where can they find more of you? Where are you hanging out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm based in Austin and I do men's retreat or not men's retreats. I do women's retreats and co-ed retreats for singles and couples. And I do some events here in Austin and LA as well. You can find me on Instagram at Talk Tantra to Me. I love posting there. It's very fun and playful, and you can get a really good essence of my work there. But my main passion and purpose in this season of life is really empowering women to step into the priestess path, to really excavate their powers to be, leaders in love and to seduce the world into a greater good. That's my deepest passion. I do work with people in their businesses a bit as well. But yeah, those are kind of the main things that I'm passionate about. And you can find the book on Amazon or at my website, www.talktantratome.com.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. This was so good. I absolutely loved it. And to everyone that's tuning in, thank you so much for giving us your most precious resource, your time. I know that you received something so magical if you landed in the space. So I'm so grateful for each and every one of you tuning in. We're sending you guys so much light and love. And until next time, thank you. Mwah.